Russian ships and submarines are in Cuba, and some of the ships were actually within 100 miles of the United States. The U.S. Navy has been deployed in Miami and is watching the situation carefully. Meanwhile, 2 unidentified subs have been spotted off the coast near Washington, D.C. What in the world's going to happen next? We're going to talk about it today on the Endtime Show. Welcome to the Endtime Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. Open lines at 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. Give us a call. We would love to hear from you on today's subject. Not only are we going to talk about what's going on in Cuba, but also something that Lindsey Graham revealed just recently, Doug, since our last show from a week ago. And then also we've got a clip from... Oh, remind me of the gentleman's name that we love so much. It's totally escaped me, Doug. Has it escaped you now that I said that?
Yes, it has. Griffin.
G. Edward Griffin. Yes.
Thank you.
We've got a clip from him that you are not going to want to miss, so don't go anywhere. Exciting show for you today. Before we get into that, though, I want to remind you about some monumental news that no one's really talking about. For the first time in our history, the interest we pay on the national debt surpassed every individual budget item except Social Security. So the U.S. now spends more on interest than on national defense or even Medicare, and it's only getting worse as big government continues to spend like crazy. That's why savvy investors, central banks, and concerned savers are turning to gold, something not tied to the inflated U.S. dollar. You can too with the help of Birch Gold. For over 20 years, Birch Gold Group has helped thousands of Americans protect their savings by converting an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. To learn more, visit birchgold.com/endtime and claim your free, no obligation info kit on gold. Birch Gold has endured my trust with their education first approach, their thousands of happy customers, and their countless 5-star reviews. Protect your savings. Visit birchgold.com/endtime today. That is that they've earned, not endured, my trust. Either way. Doug, what do we need to know about Cuba? I saw tweets going everywhere the last several days. We've had many comments. They don't like us to talk about the war, the WAR word, Doug, but we're told that
But you did anyway.
Well, I didn't mean to say that, actually, but... Before, Doug, we get into that, I should say that yesterday the show was quite a bit different than normal. We did not stream on YouTube and Facebook because literally if we talk too much about that W word or other things, we risk our account being shut down entirely.
Right.
And so, unfortunately, there's going to be times in the future where we have to only stream shows on Endtime Plus, and even having it on Endtime Plus, there's a chance where the Alphabet Army or the a group could go to Endtime Plus and report that video. There was My Pillow guy, Donald Trump, all these people. They've experienced like their website going down because things got reported, and then where the servers were, they shut it down, or the payment processors shut it down. And so there are some risk involved in a lot of what we talk about here, Doug. But nonetheless, yesterday's show was incredible. It was first of all, it's exclusive. This IDF commander that spoke with Dave has not spoken anywhere else. The Endtime Show is the only place that he, or as far as I know, anyone of his rank has spoken. And he shared some details that have never been heard before. You can watch that interview by going to endtime.com/restricted. It's going to be the first video there. You do have to have an Endtime Plus account. However, you don't have to pay for it. There's an option to watch it for free. You still have to create the account, though. So it is blocked so that the Alphabet Army and more cannot get in there and shut it down. So you need an account, set that up. You can watch it for free. Everybody needs to go watch that at endtime.com/restricted. Your eyes are going to be open to some things going on in the Israel-Gaza war. And boy, did he reveal some things, Doug. One highlight was the attacks that happened. Did you hear him say that?
Yeah.
And how, how it was, from his perspective, I don't know what the actual date is, but he told us that the attacks happened, and it was all in kibbutz that weren't religious kibbutz. Thought that was an interesting perspective that I had not heard anywhere else.
Yeah. And just being in those kibbutz, anyway, those areas, you know, they patrol those things constantly because they're a threat to, you know, the Palestinian people living around there, because they feel like those people are settlers, but they're not. And that was kind of talked about yesterday in the program as well. Not to call those people settlers, they're not settling. That's their country. That's where they live.
Yeah.
And so those kibbutz are like on the outskirts in areas that are away from everything, and they're kind of targets there. And so they have to patrol those things day and night, and with armed patrols to make sure that, you know, nobody's coming in there and doing that. And, you know, we even saw some footage where one of the guys who's one of the watchers of the kibbutz was actually shooting some of these terrorists as they came into the area from his bathroom window. So, I mean, pretty incredible. And those stories that were told yesterday, I mean, it's just, those are things you don't hear about in mainstream media.
Yeah, and that's another thing, is the footage that we received was taken by him.
Yeah.
This is not footage that you're going to see on Fox News or Newsmax or anywhere else, Doug.
Yeah.
Only on the Endtime Show, only on Endtime Plus, exclusively there. So go to endtime.com/restricted and watch that interview today. Now, Doug, there are ships in Cuba that belong to Russia, and we're getting a lot of questions about that.
Yes, we have been getting a lot of that. You know, this is in response, really. I mean, they're trying to say, look, we're not trying to pose a threat or anything like that, and that these ships don't even have nuclear weapons on them at this point, or some of the reports that they're trying to say right now. But the whole reason why Russia's there, it's a flexing of the muscle there, because of the fact that this situation in the Ukraine has gotten a little bit more heated between the U.S. and Russia, because of the fact that last week when we did the program on Will the Real Warmonger Please Stand Up, I think was what we titled it that day. But we talked about, you know, what's really going on there. Our president has now told the Ukraine that they can use United States missiles to hit into Russian territory. So this is kind of the way Russia is responding to that, sending this fleet in there. And it's a fleet of 4 different ships. Vince, one of them is a warship for sure. Another one is a nuclear-powered submarine, and another one is there's a tugboat and also a oil tanker there. So you've got this situation where it's a fleet there. And so you're seeing those pictures now as we're talking about this a little bit. You can see the picture of the ships there with the submarine. And as they rolled in there, they got a 21-gun salute from the Cuban cannons there. And what was going on there is this is just kind of like they're allies with Cuba, which is, you mentioned, 100 miles off the coast of Florida is what we're talking about now. We've got Russian warships just in our back door. And so our Navy, of course, is kind of shadowing their movements and watching them. And so we look at different things just like you guys do. You send me a lot of different things, and so I get to see some of that. So I've seen some of the things on MonkeyWorks. I know that there's a lot of people that follow MonkeyWorks, and he's ex-military, lives here in Texas, and he follows a lot of the aircraft and the movement of the aircraft. And so he keeps up with a lot of this, and he had some good information that he was talking about there too. So this is something that's got kind of everybody up in arms, Vince, right now. They say, like I said, we're not trying to pose any kind of threat. We're just trying to let America know we're here. And they're sending that message pretty loud and clear right now. But, you know, one of the things, Vince, that I had a question posed to me, if this could be the Black Swan event that we've heard a lot about. You know, several people have talked about that. We saw the one news anchor that was on, I think, CBS News, who lost her job because she said on air that there would be a Black Swan event happen this year. And then since then, we've had some other people mention that. And so I wanted to remind everybody, because we talked about that earlier in the year, about this reporter saying that the Black Swan event was going to happen in 2024. I wanted to explain to everybody again what a Black Swan event is. And it's just basically an unpredictable or rare event that happens that has extreme impact on an area, and particularly the world. And one of the things that they use as a reference to that is September 11th. When those things happen, it was an event that changed the course that the world was on. It's something unexpected that happens, and then that course of events changes the way the world was going at that point. So they talked about the 2008 financial crisis was a Black Swan event. So there's been a lot of people that said, yeah, there's a Black Swan event coming. We don't know exactly what it's going to be. And so a lot of people have asked me, is this what they're talking about? And with us coming up on an election year and things are happening with that, we're watching a whole lot of different things happen almost daily now. And it's hard to say, well, there's your Black Swan event, because we just don't know yet.
There's so much going on, Doug, and we are looking for what's next. We watch current events. As you all know, we explain current events through a lens of Bible prophecy, and that's what we've been doing here for almost 40 years, believe it or not. I cannot believe that, because it seems like just yesterday this whole thing started when the year I was born, Doug. So I've been around it my whole life, but it has flown by, that's for sure. Yeah. Of course, Irvin was around for decades prior to that, teaching Bible prophecy and what was going on with current events. But Endtime officially launched in the late 80s, and here we are, and God is doing wonderful things, and we would love to hear from you today. Be on the show by calling 877-Endtime, 877-363-8463. I do want to remind you about First Cup Coffee. They're a Christian-owned Patriot coffee company out of the great state of Texas. Doug, your favorite's the Boston Common. Mm-hmm. You and I both sipped on some of that this morning, had a good time.
Yeah.
And it was good.
Stuff.
It was very good.
Yeah.
And every roast is good. They've got 11 different ones, each one named after a specific piece of American history. You can get one of those roasts by going to firstcup.com. Use code ENDTIME to get 10% off. If you subscribe, they'll give you another 10% off. So go to firstcup.com, use code ENDTIME to get 10% off today. All right, give us a call. Doug, you mentioned Monkey Works. Is that right?
Yes.
There are many people who have no clue what in the world that means. Is it a show? What is it?
Yeah, it's a YouTube program, and he basically just will give you news about things that are happening around the world, and he shows you flight patterns and what those flight patterns mean. He's ex-military, and he has his own program on YouTube. So people have sent me his links before. I've followed him before and listened to some of the things he says. I don't always agree with what he says, but I do think that he knows what he's talking about when he's showing where the planes are flying and things like that. So we're going to reference something about that here in a few minutes as we move down through here. But I wanted to jump back on that Black Swan comment, because there's been not only the reporter this year, but there's been many others. But another prominent figure that has talked about the Black Swan event would be General Michael Flynn, and a lot of people know who General Flynn is. And he was a former advisor to President Trump when he was in office. And so he made a comment about this, and this was earlier in the year. This was actually back in March when he was talking about this Black Swan event happening this year. He said, in the world of military operations, or even in a world that's just things, we call them Black Swan events. Black Swan events are things that nobody imagined could occur, and yet they do. And then they have these incredible, mostly devastating effects. So I think that is what we have got to be thinking about. We have to be prepared. On our side, we have to be prepared immediately to respond to certain scenarios. He said, I think the scenario is these people just decide, look, there's no way in the world that we can win a legitimate, fair election, so let's not even have one. And he said, so in order to not have one, how do they create the conditions in order to not have an election? He said, now that's a scenario. He's not saying that's what's happening. He just says that's a scenario to imagine. And he says, I want to have this outcome, but he said, I don't want to have this outcome, but that is a scenario that you can imagine. So something that they might, that might keep us from being able to go into the elections is if we had a world war, if the world went into a world war. So we've been talking about this situation with Israel and what's happening there. They're surrounded from all different sides. An article came out yesterday, said they are now fighting on 7 different fronts in Israel. And of course, we had the commander there on the program with Dave yesterday that gave some updates about some of that stuff. There was video footage this morning, Vince, that came out where Israel is launching fireballs from a catapult, like a medieval catapult that's actually working, and they're throwing fireballs into Lebanon. And so it's just some of those things you're seeing. It's like, this is crazy. But that's kind of a shock and awe weapon there that they're using. But also, Ron Paul said that he also believed that there would be a Black Swan event this year. And he said, really, the most important thing you do is study and understand what's going on. So that's what we need to be doing. That's what we do here. We study and we try to inform people on what we believe is going on based on Bible prophecy. But he says that people need to be aware of what's happening, because if you come away from that and you've been able to accumulate things like your guns and your stored food and all that, he says that's great, but that's not going to work. He said you need to understand what's happening. You need to have, you have to know what's coming. It's very, very dangerous, and that's why he loves to see smaller units in government, or smaller units of government. And while Paul didn't specifically say that what the Black Swan event would be, he predicted that it would be election related also. And he said current polling and news leads us to believe that there's only one way for Democrats to remain in power, and that's holding on to the presidency. The U.S. Senate would be an event that either took out a presumptive nominee from an opposing party or nearly half the population. So he's saying these are things that you could think about as being Black Swan events. So one of the things that we're trying to help everybody understand is not to be afraid of these things, but to understand what's happening and be aware of your surroundings. Based on what Scripture tells us, we know the number one priority is, Vince, is to have our name written in the Lamb's Book of Life, to be born again, and then trust God, because God tells us that if we're doing the work of the kingdom, He's going to take care of us. So we don't have to be afraid of these things, but we want people to be aware of it, because this is a way that you can help people to understand the Bible and become born again, to save souls, to win souls, to help build the kingdom of God. And that's what we're here for. We're not trying to fearmonger. We're just showing you things that are happening and saying, look, these are things that they talk about in the world, and so we've got to look at them.
And so, Doug, the unidentified subs, we were talking about that a minute ago. You mentioned Monkey Works and how they watch flight patterns.
Yeah, it's easy for you to say.
Yeah, I know, right? And Black Swan events. I asked you before the show. I'm like, okay, Doug, Black Swan events. I know that's a thing, but is that a conspiracy theory term? Like, obviously, you reference Ron Paul, Michael Flint, General Flynn, and people go, oh, conspiracy theorists. So if someone says a Black Swan event could happen this year, is that not, like, I guess, aren't most people thinking conspiracy, or no?
Well, I would think that when you hear that term, you might possibly think that's a conspiracy theory. But when you look back in history and you can pinpoint those things, you can say, okay, these were Black Swan events. Not necessarily that they were some event to cause a reaction or an event to occur, but they were things that happened, like financial crisis, things like that are going on. This whole thing with October 7th and starting the war in Israel, I mean, that could be considered a Black Swan event too. It was something that nobody was planning for except for the terrorists. Nobody really realized it. It happened on a Sabbath day when a lot of people were relaxing with their families and enjoying the Sabbath, and it took them by surprise. It took them unaware. You know, Dave talks about when they were in Israel and they were up on Masada, and all of a sudden they hear bombs going off, and the next thing they know, our guide is telling them, hey, we got to get everybody back to the hotel because we've just been attacked. We've had a terrorist attack. So it was something that happened unexpectedly and suddenly, and that's what people refer to as Black Swan events. And so to really say that this is a conspiracy theory, I guess the conspiracy would be while saying this is going to happen. But if you remember, Klaus Schwab gave a warning about an event that could happen that would be more catastrophic than COVID would be if we had a total blackout of everything, the internet and electricity and all these services. And he said, imagine how devastating that would be on the world. And he did it in a way that almost sounded like he was giving you a precursor to it happening, like this is what we're going to do to you next. Other people have said there's this bird flu that's coming, and it's going to be the next big pandemic. That could be a Black Swan event. And so really just saying that it's a conspiracy theory with all the things that are going on in the world right now, any one of those events could be considered a Black Swan.
Yeah, and Doug, I remember when 15-minute cities were a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we started talking about that, people are going, oh, you can't prove that. Nobody's wanting to do it. And now it's just like they're open about it. We want 15-minute cities. And guess what? I think Dallas is one of the cities. Is it Dallas?
Dallas is one of the hubs that has got some of the larger ones in here.
Yeah, and that's just a known thing that everybody talks about. So it's like that was a conspiracy theory. Now it is just a way of life, I suppose. I just saw a brand new build down in downtown Plano right here, a mile from us. Mm-hmm. They've got 7-Eleven down on the base and all these other different shops and stores. And then their apartment buildings and parking, it's all right there. And of course, everything's real close, so you don't even need a vehicle. And you're probably working from home. So go ahead and lower that carbon footprint while we fly our private jets. But those were all conspiracy theories just a few years ago.
Yeah, a few years ago, you wouldn't have thought that anything about it. You see a building like that. I remember when I worked in downtown Plano, and there was a building there that had a 7-Eleven, it had a nail salon, it had a hair barbershop place, it had a workout room, and it was just a building, a high-rise building that people lived in, and you thought, oh, look how convenient. But now you understand the concept of the things that are going on there. And so that leads us, I guess, into our next thing that we were going to talk about here today. But you know what? I tell you what, before we get there, we got some things, we got a couple of more things to talk about, don't we?
Do we?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, we've got to talk about those subs. But I wanted to remind everybody that, you know, that interview we did yesterday, a lot of the content that we talk about on here doesn't go along with this agenda. You know, the 15-minute cities, the World Economic Forum, the Globalist, the stuff we talk about on End Time has always been opposite of what agenda they're pushing. We're trying to get people into the kingdom of God, not the kingdom of Satan. And so I'm not saying that a 7-Eleven in your downstairs at your apartment complex is part of the kingdom of Satan, but the global agenda certainly is. And we are just combating that as much as we can with what we see in the Bible, which is what we believe is truth. And so guess who doesn't like it? The big overlords and all the tech companies. So they want to censor, they want to suppress our content. I see many of you comment every single day, had no idea you guys went live. I didn't get my notification. We know that happens so often, and so we need your help. You can share this video. That goes a long way in making sure your friends and family see it. But also when you heart the video, when you comment, that goes a long way in making sure that your friends and family will see the notification that we are live. And our friend Will Johnson, who's been on the show before and promotes our show, he tells his audience to set a timer on their phone. For us, it would be the Endtime Show is live. Go watch it. Tell your phone to remind you every day. Of course, that's using AI and all that technology, but use the technology for good. Tell your phone to remind you, because Facebook sure won't, YouTube sure won't. So do that. Help us get the word out by sharing. It doesn't cost anybody a dime for you to share this video.
There are some ways that AI is good.
Absolutely.
I use it all the time to find my phone.
I told it to remind me to check the fire extinguishers at 4:45 p.m. So
there you go.
I use Siri. But anyway, Doug,
Yeah.
What's up with these subs near Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, so there was a lot of chatter going on X, and some folks posted, and I think we have a screenshot of maybe that X post that we can throw up there. And this is the type of thing, we were talking about Monkey Works earlier, and that's the type of thing he does. So I don't know how well you can see that on the screen, but it shows a plane that was doing a flight pattern there. And what that plane was doing was supposedly searching for some submarines. There were 2 submarines off the coast of Washington, D.C., supposedly, and they were not identified as U.S. or Russian. And so they were trying to monitor them and follow them. And I tried to find more information on this today, and I couldn't. I did go to Monkey Works and watch a program from, I believe, Tuesday, when he was following this, and he said the sub just basically disappeared. It went to a depth that they could no longer monitor it from the sky. So they said that it got down there around Florida, and it dropped really deep and disappeared off their radar. So I think that was probably related to that story, and never could find any more information about that. But it's interesting nonetheless, because we've got a lot of this back and forth going on, kind of like the Hunt for Red October happening in our backyard right now. So it's interesting. And, we said earlier that Russia says it's because of the things that the U.S. has threatened with Ukraine, and some of the things that are being talked about, not necessarily from us right now, but from the West, from NATO. They've talked about putting boots on the ground there. France, for instance, Emmanuel Macron has already sent some training officers in there to train some of the Ukrainian troops. And then last week, our president said that it was okay to give the go-ahead for Ukraine to use our missiles to shoot into Russia. So these are red lines that Russia said the United States should not cross, and he kept, saying we're going to back this up with our nuclear power, and I think that's what the show of force is about. But Lindsey Graham, we're not going to get to it, are we? I hear the music coming.
Lindsey Graham, we've got an important update on him, so don't go anywhere. Open lines at 877 Endtime, 877-363-8463. Dave just posted the comment of the year. He said, "I'm not part of the Illuminati. I've had my hands like that for decades." People question Dave all the time too, so we'll be right back.
A voice spoke to me and said, "I've got something I want to show you." I was so sure God had talked to me, and I was stunned by what I saw.
A direct fulfillment of this over 2,500-year-old prophecy. The United States will stand with Israel.
Why haven't I ever seen this before?
1/3 of humanity will die. What do these beasts symbolize?
The lion, the bear, the leopard.
The combined beast from Revelation 13 represents the end-time government of the Antichrist. Understanding the end time.
Now streaming on Endtime Plus and available to order at endtime.com/UET. Go to endtime.com/UET or call 800-ENDTIME.
What if you could understand Bible prophecy? Dave Robbins, the host of the Endtime Show's TV and radio programs, is holding a free prophecy conference near you. Gain peace and understanding about what the Bible says concerning end-time prophecy. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com/events to see when Dave will be in a location near you.
Welcome back to the Endtime Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. Open lines at 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. Don't forget that Dave and Jana Robbins will be in Kingsport, Tennessee, just over a week from now. You can go to endtime.com/events to learn more about the venue and specific details surrounding that conference. Dave will be teaching about the Green Horsemen and World War III. Literally the only place you're going to hear that lesson right now is at a conference. So if you're in the Kingsport, Tennessee area, make plans to come out or fly in from New York or California or Washington, wherever you might be. Dave and Jana would love to meet you there in Kingsport, Tennessee. So go to endtime.com/events, or we're happy to help you out over the phone. Give us a call at 800-END-TIME for that. Again, 877 to call in to be on the show, 877-363-8463. Doug, we've talked about the ships from Russia in Cuba, submarines as well, how close they got to Florida, how the U.S. Navy's been deployed to Miami, supposedly not in response to that it's just normal routine for them to go there, which I'm sure it's normal routine to patrol the coast.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we also talked about some Black Swan event stuff, and then the 2 submarines that were off the coast of, I think it's Norfolk technically, but near Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And now we are to Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, so he kind of let the cat out of the bag the other day. You know, everybody's been like, well, why are we so interested in this Ukraine-Russian war? And, you know, a lot of it was, when this all first started, it was like because Russia invaded and they're a tyrant and they're trying to take over Ukraine. And the whole time Russia was always saying, well, this is a military operation. They were going in for a specific reason, but then NATO got very involved, even though the Ukraine is not a NATO nation or a NATO state. And so the West has been deeply involved. Well, Graham, in an interview, he said the other day, the Ukraine has trillions of dollars worth of critical minerals in their country. Vladimir Putin cannot be allowed to access that money and those resources because he'll share it with China. So you just got to follow the money sometimes, Vince. And that's kind of, you know, Graham's kind of been, we had video footage of him. I think a year ago we did a program where it showed Lindsey Graham talking to Ukrainian soldiers before this even happened, and he was saying how the United States was going to have their back, and we were going to help them with every resource that we had available. And he was like kind of pushing them and getting them geared up for this invasion by Russia. And you know, I wish that this comment would have came out last week while we were doing that show. Will the real warmonger please stand up? But anyway, we find out that this is more about money and critical minerals that they don't want Russia to get their hands on. And remember, a long ways back, the Ukraine was part of Russia. I mean, they were part of the Soviet Union. And so this is interesting, these things develop and come out. You know, there's been all kinds of things that have leaked out this week. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but there's a pretty good Nancy Pelosi video that came out. I'll just tell everybody that, and you can go look that up if you don't know what I'm talking about.
I'm sure they'll find it if they search pretty good Nancy Pelosi video.
Yeah, a leaked footage from Nancy Pelosi about January 6th.
The back of her limousine. That might help you find the one we're talking about specifically.
So there's all kinds of different things coming out right now. But folks, like we said, we just need to keep an eye on these things because there is a prophesied sixth trumpet war coming, what we call World War III, and that is prophesied in the Bible, where it's going to kill 1/3 of mankind. It talks about a military force of 200 million men, and we know that China can do that alone. There are the Middle Eastern Arab countries can do that. Also, India is capable of doing that. And because we know Russia and China are allies with Iran, and we're watching all the things happen in Israel right now, we keep an eye on all this stuff because we're expecting that event to happen at any time. And here coming up pretty soon, I want to do at least a little question answer time where we talk more about the Sixth Trumpet War, because I've had a lot of people asking me about that and about the second woe. And so I want to address that one day on the program, because I'm sure a lot of people have questions about that.
Well, yeah, and regarding the questions, Doug, people can go to endtime.com/contact. There's a form there. If you select minister, submit your questions there. Someone will get back with you. We reply a lot within 24 hours, Doug. Sometimes it does take a couple of days, but we pretty much reply to all emails within 24 hours or shortly thereafter, and we are here on standby to help you out. And sometimes those questions that are submitted there get featured on the show. So go to endtime.com/contact. Also, Doug, you were mentioning the Sixth Trumpet War that's prophesied in the Bible. Mm-hmm. Now, that is some of the harmful content that YouTube says is not good. They say it's harmful for viewers to watch. Yeah. Talking about things like that, pretty much things we talk about every day, I guess, is classified as harmful content. They certainly don't want us telling people that Jesus is the way, the singular way to heaven. They certainly don't want us talking about things like that. Yeah. And of course, we're going to tell you to go to endtime.com/reborn to know what it means to be born again. Yes, there is going to be an exclusive list. There will be people that do not make it to heaven, and guess what? They go somewhere else, Doug. People don't say it anymore.
Yeah, right.
But there are going to be people that go to hell. We just come right out and tell you that's what the Bible says. And so, yes, the content's harmful. And we're featuring, of course, Endtime Plus right now in response to YouTube. Use code YouTube on watch.endtime.com. You'll get Endtime Plus for less than $6 a month. But we're also doing a summer sale right now, and that's part of the summer sale. So Dave is going to sign every single Understanding the End Time book that's purchased during this sale. You can go to endtime.com/summer. And that will get you to the listing that's available right now. Special things. If you go there, Dave said that he's willing to tape the marker to his hand and just sign as many books as necessary. So wouldn't it be great if some people went there and bought 100 books and gave them out to their friends and family and see what that impact could do? And Dave had to sign all 100 with those Illuminati hands that he has. Let's make that happen.
Right? Yeah, let's do it. Let's get him pumped up on some First Cup coffee and give him a marker and set him to town.
Let him go.
There you go.
Also, the DVD series for Understanding the End Times available presently for a donation of any amount. So if the Lord tells you to donate $20,000 to get one set, we're going to send it to you. But if the Lord tells you to donate $50, we'll send it to you that way as well. So whatever you feel led to give to receive that series, it's a life-changing series. You need to go do it. Endtime.com/summer to learn more about that. And of course, to get the sorry, sometimes people comment stuff and it does distract me. But endtime.com/summer or call us at 800-ENDTIME. And Dave said to quit volunteering him for stuff, is what he told me over the chat. So
tell him that goes both ways.
If you only listen to the show or watch the show, you miss out on some really great stuff happening in the chat. So Anyway.
Well, here's one more thing I want to say about that special too. Is, I get people all the time that call me and they say, well, what can I do? I don't know how to teach this stuff. This teaches itself, really. I mean, Dave does all the teaching for you. All the information's on the DVD. You can get the workbook to go along with it. If you're teaching other people, that workbook, you can make copies of that. You can pass out the outline that follows that lesson completely, and then it's got question and answers in the back of it that you'll be able to answer those questions because you'll have everything right there in your book. And so you can teach this to people, and that's the way you learn. I mean, you learn by teaching. That's how I learned all this. When I first started listening to Pastor Baxter years and years ago, Vince, I was learning from listening to him. But then when I started teaching other people, that's where I really started learning, because I had to know this stuff for when the questions were asked. And so if you want to learn, you got to teach. It's a good way to learn. It's a good way to grow together. And you can always tell people what we tell people. I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out for you, and we'll try to get it answered, So if we don't know an answer to a question, that's what we'll tell you, and we'll try to get the answer for you the next time we talk to you. So anyway, great resource for teaching as well, and teaching is very important because that's how we're going to win souls and get people into the kingdom of heaven.
Amen. All right, Doug. Well, we've covered a lot. We do have open lines. If you've ever wanted to be on the show, now would be a great time to call, 877-END-TIME. What do we need to cover next?
So there's some interesting stories that have come out. We talked about the 15-minute cities earlier, and this is all part of Agenda 21. It's all part of the World Economic Forum, WHO. All those are connected, Vince, to these 15-minute cities, because the next crisis, the next global crisis that they really want to push is climate change. And one of the ways that they believe that they can control climate is by forcing us to live in these 15-minute cities where you can't travel more than 15 minutes outside of that. So basically you're traveling by bicycle or walking, or you're going to have they want you to have one vehicle per family and then not go past a certain amount. Some places are even fining people for going out of their 15-minute zones. And so one of the stories that comes out, this comes from the Jerusalem Post, and it says 20,000 people live in this dystopian building and they never leave the building. That's what they would love to happen. So this is going on in China. It's Hangzhou, China, where these 20,000 people live in the Regent International, a massive mixed-use building provided all necessary amenities, making it unnecessary for inhabitants to leave. They simply have no reason to. Inside this massive building, Vince, they have a business district, so it's a central business district that's located there, and residents can find everything they could ever need, from a supermarket to workplaces to bars to places to get haircuts, clothing stores, sports facilities, and even a pool for relaxation. There's no need to even step outside. This 672-foot tall building offers 260,000 square meters of space, and it includes all those things, including also gyms and schools and all kinds of different recreational facilities, everything that you could imagine. And despite already housing this 20,000 people, they really have room for 30,000. And the apartment cost will vary. They said if you want just the basic apartment, so if you're looking for just your small top apartment with no windows, $210 per month is all that would cost you. Now think about that, because living out here in this area, it's like $1,200 a month to live in an apartment out here. But the cost does go up in this large area. If you want a balcony where you could actually step outside and see what's going on in the city, it's going to cost you around $570, Vince. So anyway, this is something that they're trying to lure young professionals in. They say it's a great way to start. But the thing about this is all going to be used to control. And they're not just wanting to do it in countries like China. China is, once again, remember we talked about WEF and Klaus Schwab. That's really their model for everything. They want this as a model. But they're also ramping it up to happen here. You mentioned Dallas a while ago being one of the hubs. Ohio is another one. There are several different places, Vince, where that is what they're trying to do, is to get you in these buildings, to have you to where you can't go outside a certain area, and if you do, eventually you'll be fined. So.
Well, we've got a clip we're going to show people on the other side of the break, and then we're going to get to your calls at 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. We'll be right back.
Understand what is taking place will instruct many.
Except a man is born again, he can enter or see the kingdom of God.
I don't care what label you've been given or what label you've given yourself, you are essential. You still matter.
This is a journey, and when we get to the other side of that, that's where our prize is, that's where our reward is.
End time is not going anywhere.
Welcome back to the Endtime Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. Open lines at 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Again, I want to remind you, Dave and Jana Robbins will be in Kingsport, Tennessee, just over a week from now. You can get additional details about the venue and the conference at endtime.com/events, or give us a call at 800-ENDTIME. We'll be happy to help you out over the phone. Definitely an event you want to make plans to be a part of, even if you're kind of far away. Some people fly in for them, Doug, and it's a great time to spend some a little bit more quality time with Dave and Jana, and sometimes you and Tina, Doug. You've got a conference coming up soon too as well. Yes. We're all going to be in Long Beach, California in October.
That's true.
So we're going to be releasing details about that soon. But yeah, we will all be in Long Beach, California in October, and be looking out for that as well. So are we ready for that clip, or do you want to preface it with anything? Or?
Well, let me just say this real quick, because one of the things back to the living in these 15-minute cities, one of the things that they want to do is be able to control that situation where if we had another pandemic or like this global crisis, because they've talked about this too, they would be able to lock you inside, Vince, where you wouldn't be able to get out, because like we said, these are smart cities. They monitor everything. But just a side note here, because the WHO has rammed their pandemic resolution through, even though it was voted down. And we're going to have to keep our eye on this. I'm not going to go into the story a whole lot because we don't have time, but they were able to kind of push through with the pandemic treaty to give them a little bit more control and power over the sovereignty of some nations, even though that was voted out. Only 37 members of 194 voted for that. So anyway, we'll keep an eye on that and come back to that story another day and give you some more information on that. But let's go to the video clip now. This is G. Edward Griffin, and he is telling us what Agenda 21 is really about.
Agenda 21 is kind of a code name for a master plan originated at the United Nations to change the political and economic system of the world to one of total collectivism. And in order to do that, people must not be allowed to have independence. They must be dependent on the state for everything. Otherwise, they won't be easily controlled by the state. That means they can't have private property, mostly. They cannot have land of their own. They have to live in preferably high-rise apartments that are provided to them by the state as a benefit, so to speak. Oh, good, we got a free apartment. But these people at the top want all humans to be dependent on the largesse of the state. That means that they don't want anybody living out in the boonies. Anybody that's got a couple of acres of land and his own water supply and can grow his own food and that kind of thing, or have some sheep or some chickens, these people are a threat to the collectivist society, because they aren't going to go to the politicians and say, please feed me, please clothe me, please give me shelter. They tend to be independent. That's the secret behind Agenda 21. They want people out of the country. They want corporations out there growing all the food and that kind of thing, but they don't want anybody living out there, because that way they cannot be controlled. In order to control mankind, we have to get them all into the big cities. We have to rack them up and stack them up, get them dependent on the state for their food, their shelter, their electrical power, their water, everything. That's the dirty secret behind Agenda 21.
So also the dirty
I'm a
secret.
threat, Doug.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got
so
chickens and ducks.
Yeah, and I'm growing my own food sources and have a water source. So, yeah, that's the thing, and that's the secret, the dirty little secret behind these 15-minute cities too, Vince. That's exactly what G. Edward Griffin is talking about. There is they want you in this box so that they can control you. Remember, Klaus Schwab is famous for saying, "You'll own nothing and be happy."
Another conspiracy theory that has come true.
There you go.
All right, we ready to get to the phones?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we're going to start in Missouri. Craig is watching there. Craig, welcome to the Endtime Show.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Going good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been following you guys, man, for a long time. I started watching Irvin Baxter back in 2009, so I'm hanging in there with you guys.
Awesome.
All
right. My question, I guess it's on topic with the end times, was kind of off topic with what you guys are talking about, but you know, in Revelations when it talks about loosing the four angels underneath the, I believe is it the River Euphrates?
Yes.
And I've always wondered, like, why does it only reference 4 angels, like when we know that there were more that were cast down?
Well, that is a great question, and what we really believe is that these are angels that are over those provinces that are there in that area. So we've got Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey are the 4 that line up along the Euphrates River. And if you remember in the book of Daniel, Daniel's been praying, he's been fasting, and an angel appears to Daniel after, I believe it's 20 days or so. And he tells Daniel, he says, your prayers were heard the moment you begin to pray, but I've been in battle with the prince of Persia. And Michael, the archangel, had to come and help me defeat this angel. So we know that there are angels over regions because of that particular passage, and we believe that those 4 angels are probably over those different provinces there. Because remember, Satan is the ruler of this earth. He's the ruler of the earth at this time, and he's got his angels out, and they have dominion over certain areas. And so that's when we think it talks about these 4 particular angels that are bound in that area.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now that gives me a very clear picture of it all. Now I really appreciate that, guys.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Craig, are you already on Endtime Plus?
I am not. I need to get on there.
Well, we're going to make it happen. Stay on hold. We'll get your email address. We'll gift you with 6 months for... No, how long you been following? Since 2009? Yeah. That's 15 years, Doug. Give him 15 months if that's an option.
All right.
So let's put Craig on hold and get him set up with Endtime Plus. Appreciate your call, Craig. God bless you very much. Of course, let's see. Revelation. I was going to say Daniel, but that's not on there. There's this course on JPC for Daniel that Irvin did. We were never able to produce that series, Doug, but that could be coming very soon. It sounds like it is, but don't worry, that's not the big announcement I've been teasing you guys about. There is a big announcement coming. It's not the Daniel series, though. Understanding Daniel could be coming very soon also. The big announcement...
Are you volunteering Dave for something else again?
Yeah, is that my volunteering Dave? No, that's all him. He's the one doing all that.
Okay, you want a drum roll?
Yeah, drum roll. We're not giving it yet. Okay. All right, no big announcement yet, but it's coming, so don't go anywhere. You'll miss out.
It's coming very soon too, right? You never did answer my question today in the when we were doing the
off air. You're wanting to follow up on a question you asked me.
Well, no,
air.
I'm just saying you never did answer my question when we were in our production meeting. I asked you, and you said I'll tell you in just a second. And you never got back to me.
Well, my wife tells me I do that all the time.
Yeah,
so
we'll have to talk about it.
It's coming very, very soon, but not like Jesus is coming back soon.
Right.
Like how he said he was coming back soon.
Yeah.
It's not going to take that long.
Gotcha.
Stick around. Might be very soon. All right, back to the phones. We're going to Colorado now. David is watching there. David, welcome to the Endtime Show.
How you doing, folks?
We are doing great, sir.
I've been listening a long time, and I actually had a chance to meet Irvin. Me and my son was 8 at the time. He's turning 15 in November, so I just want to say I really miss Irvin, and I appreciate you folks. One of the only real news channels out there. But my question is, and I'll take it off the air, I've always wanted to know, the Bible talks about God taking kings and setting them up and putting them down. And the country is rallying behind Trump and all of that. And I've always wondered, did God take him out of office to get people focused on Jesus Christ and get the church motivated to tell people about the Lord instead of everybody's focus being shifted on, the man's done miracles for this country. I mean, I'm sure God has had his hand on everything, but my question is, what do you guys think about that? Did he put Biden in or somebody else in to maybe get the church to get people to think about Jesus Christ instead of focusing on a man here on the earth? And I'll take my answer off the air.
Thank you, David. God bless you. You know, Doug, I think that's interesting. You know, because I'm looking at all sorts of things going on globally, and I do believe that that things are pointing to his kingdom coming. And did he put Biden in place? I mean, what's our answer on that, Doug? Did he actually say, I'm going to put Joe Biden in office, or is it a kind of a, he set things into motion and that's what happened as a result?
Well, you know, I mean, Scripture does tell us, Vince, that God does set up kings and takes kings down. And a lot of times I think that we get the kings we deserve. I mean, you see, that's kind of what happened with Israel when they wanted a king, and you know, God was supposed to be their king. You know, they weren't supposed to have a man rule over them, but they wanted one. And sometimes Israel got good kings, and sometimes Israel got bad kings because they weren't in God's will at that time. And, you know, David brings up a good point, and could that be what's going on? Maybe this was a way for God to wake up people here in America to get us focused back on Him. I believe that a lot of things that have come to pass over the last 4 years have been ways to do that for us, because not only have we seen things like the pestilence and, you know, COVID, the big time pestilence that came. I mean, it has taken a lot of people away from us, and I think that was a way to wake people up too. And this is just a way for God to turn us back to Him, possibly. You know, Trump is not the answer to the problems we have in this nation. Only God is.
Yes.
But God has used Trump in ways that we've seen prophetically, and we've seen make our individual lives better. I mean, we've seen Him pull us out of world government. We've seen Him pull us out of the climate agreement. He was getting us, basically he was getting ready to pull us out of NATO. That's what scared Macron and some of the other leaders to beef up their defenses. And then he was taking us out of the WHO, who is the one that's wanting to pass these bills to take our sovereignty away. He stood in the halls of the WEF and said America would never be a socialist country. There's a big threat to socialism, and we know that that's the world government beast, is going to be socialist or communistic. And so I think God used him in many different ways to start this prophetic ball rolling. And whether or not he gets back in office, I think God is still going to be in control no matter who's in there. And this country has done a really good job, I feel like, of turning things around to go back to God, to begin to pray more and seek God more. We've seen it here in our ministry, so many people coming new into this and asking questions like that. So,
well, rough times usually do things like that,
yes,
Doug. So we're grateful to be in God's kingdom. We're so grateful that you've joined us on the show today. Unfortunately, we're all out of time yet again. Don't forget to go to endtime.com/summer for our exclusive summer sale deals. Don't want to miss out on those. Also, there's thousands of hours of content that's available totally free on watch.endtime.com and endtime.com. That's free because of our generous partners all around the world like you that give every single month at endtime.com/give. Become a partner with us today to help to continue to make this show available for free every day. We'll see you right back here tomorrow for Open Line. Call in and ask Dave your question. I had to volunteer him for one last thing. See you then.